Hello, everyone. Welcome to Midweek Gaming. I'm Nick. On the side of the voice comms is, of course, Justin, providing audio, gameplay, and his own breed of madness where applicable. What a week it's been. Well, what a time it's been in gaming. I honestly didn't expect to have this conversation. If you follow the channel, you know last week I hoped to do something along the lines of a video essay discussing the current state of video movie tie-in games.
Hmm.
But guess we're not doing that because yeah,
A
Xbox
certain a
did
certain Microsoft Xbox decided to release something.
well, not release something. What they did,
Well, they
again,
released
all
a notice about it.
it's all unconfirmed for the most part. It's all speculation from very reputable industry leaks and sources. But as far as anything is officially concerned, Xbox has been somewhat silent on it. But from the people who are saying it, everyone's pretty much wagering it's going to happen. And what that is this. Xbox is deciding to take some of their stuff, like some of their big stuff, and just kind of put it on PlayStation. Some of the things floating, I originally let me see. I have a list of, and I originally heard of this from Paul Tassi actually, who he did a video on, and his video's down in the description if you want to check that out. He does a pretty comprehensive thing on it, being a Forbes journalist himself. But I originally heard about all of this from him, and apparently this started with rumors circulating from Xbox, from the insiders at Xbox, basically saying that they were going to first it was they're going to put Gravity Rush. I think it was Gravity Rush on the yeah, I think it was Gravity Rush. No, I might be wrong there. On the PlayStation, and everyone's like, okay, sure, yeah, it's a cult classic. Some people are going to be irked, but fine. Then there was talk that it was going to be Sea of Thieves next. Not now it was going to be. Now it's also going to be Sea of Thieves, and everyone once again said, okay, well, it's a multi-platform game. It's a multiplayer game in general. Expanding the base, that makes sense. Then there was talk of Starfield also getting added to the list, and everyone probably lost their shit at that point because, yeah, and for the record, this is not the extensive list. That list has kept growing and fluctuating, but there are certain titles that have remained consistent there. For example, the Indiana Jones game is apparently also going to get that treatment when it comes out, which is going to be part of my video expose, but again, that'll have to get shelved for now. So, yeah, this is big news that Xbox is taking some of their most precious titles and, again, reportedly, because this is all from very reputable industry insiders and leaks, nothing confirmed from the big shots at Xbox yet, but that they're going to start moving it to PlayStation. Um, this is big. This is basically them waving the white flag of the console wars. Now, granted, there is some precedent for this. Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox, way back, I think, in the beginning of this Series X generation, S, X, whatever, the current one, said that he himself had always believed that, you know, there is no longer a console war, or he doesn't want to be part of console war, him and the rest of Xbox anymore, and he wants to get away from all of that. Now, everyone at the time said, yeah, sure. But again, to kind of paraphrase from what Phil Tassi said, yeah, but at best, is that everyone kind of thought at the time that meant that they were just moving away into a new form of kind of streaming services and xCloud. They were moving away strictly from the console side of the kind of console war, so to speak, not actually, giving up in general.
Right.
But it seems like everyone might have been inaccurate when they were debating that statement, or at the very least, that statement has changed in its meaning because, yeah, this definitely speaks gravity to what Xbox is doing. Now, before we get too deep into this, I want to say that there are two sides to this argument. There are people who are very much for this argument, and there are pretty much are very for this decision, and there are people who are interestingly very enough against this decision.
Hmm.
And we're going to talk about both of those, and in fairness, they both have very good points to them. Now, let's start with the positive side. Let's go with the pro. The pro is that this is going to make everything one big happy family. You don't have to worry about, what console you're playing on anymore. If you want to play on a PS, you can play on a PS. You want to play on Xbox, you play on Xbox, PC. PC's always been the third weird child in the room, so we're just going to keep that on the shelf. And Nintendo is doing whatever the fuck Nintendo's doing these days. So,
Yeah.
at least between the two main ones, there won't be as much division anymore, right? Sounds all good. But by that same token, when we go to the anti-conversation, the against side, well, that's kind of being used as the same point. why would I buy an Xbox if I can just play it on PlayStation? I mean, PlayStation to some degree has slightly better specs than the Xbox Series, not by much, mind you, but by somewhat. I don't know if the Series X can play 8K. I certainly know the PS5 can. Granted, there are no games that are made in 8K currently, but it does say that on the box, so it
I,
seems like a
I
bit of
have that
double.
option, even though nobody uses it. I have the option.
Yeah, I don't know if Xbox does, but again, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, why would someone buy an Xbox if they can just play it on PS or if they can just play it on PC? And continuing that, it's kind of that thing of like, why are we going to sell ourselves as or why is Xbox going to sell its stuff as XCloud, as this, of that, when you can just play it on on PlayStation all the same, right? Like, what's the point of Game Pass? Are they gonna put Game Pass on PlayStation now? Like, is that where we're going here? I mean, they were already talking about putting it on the mobile, so I don't know. But and Paul himself even kind of brought up the idea of Xbox's day one launch, right? All games on Xbox have a Xbox day one launch, where in some cases, some particularly big games get launched, right there on day one. I won't explain the logistics of that, but anyways,
Hmm.
are they going to now do that on PlayStation as well? Like, it's, on the surface, it does seem like this is good PR, and it is to some extent. But when you look at it from a business perspective, this is also a very big nail in Xbox's coffin. Now, that was a very bad way of me saying, let me rephrase that. This is going to very much change the way Xbox exists currently. Now, there are some people saying in the industry, is this going to mean the end of Xbox? Absolutely not. They're
No.
going to keep existing in one form or another,
Hmm.
but they will certainly change from what they are currently if this does end up being true. One of the things me and Jess were actually saying before the stream, and actually how on point quite called how he figured this out, was actually one of the games thrown around on the list, and I think also Paul in his video mentions this as well, is that the Halo Master Chief Collection is apparently also going to get thrown onto PlayStation. That's the insider talk at Xbox. Again, none of this has been confirmed, but the fact that they're throwing things like the new Starfield and Halo on PlayStation, that's big. Like, one of the big reasons Xbox was dinged in the last console generation, and I think even Phil Spencer himself admitted, is that they lost the last generation because PlayStation had way better exclusives to them. And at the end of the day, regardless of what you think of the console wars, the fact of the matter is exclusives moves the units. It's not the pretty picture, it's not the processing speed, it's the exclusives. The exclusives move the units. And without the exclusives, which Xbox lacked, some would argue still lacks,
Hmm.
they didn't have enough oomph to move their consoles, and so they lost the last generation. That was one of the things they tried to rectify this generation. The success rate of which has been variable, but it is kind of a showing that Xbox might be throwing in the towel in general, because again, what's going to sell Xbox if they're throwing away all of their already established exclusives that they do have? What's going to move the units at this point? And like always, I forget where the heck I'm going with this point. But
Basically, I'll say this. We'll move on to a different thing. Um, Frankly,
oh
when it comes, oh, all right, go.
no,
If you'd like to finish
sometimes
your point.
no, I might as well. I might as well. It's just I have these weird moments where I'll try to make tangents, and then as just you were saying before the stream with the Skeletor, I'll be like, "Oh, was I saying? Oh yeah."
Ah,
Anyways,
right. Joe
but anyway,
Blackbird.
hell Blackman. Anyways, but yeah. Like for example, when it comes to Starfield, for example, right? I think this kind of like when you look at why this happened, why this is happening just now. I think Starfield is the catalyst for it. If you didn't hear rumblings in the industry, allow me to fill in the blanks for you. Basically, Xbox was basically betting that Starfield, which again, up until this potential future, was an Xbox and still is currently an Xbox exclusive, was going to be the next Skyrim. That was literally what Xbox was claiming. That was what they were saying internally. That's not a debate. They were claiming that. They hoped it would be. They hoped it would be the next Skyrim and that it would pop off and be the next big seller for their thing. They
Hmm.
hope to effectively have a new God of War Ragnarok of their own. That didn't happen. Now, granted, is Starfield a bad game? No, I have the collector's edition. I play the game. It's a very good game. Still haven't finished it because with those types of games from Bethesda, I always have trouble finishing them
They
because of
they
how
they always take a hot minute.
they always take more than a hot minute. Yeah,
I mean,
but
sometimes they don't, but if you're looking to go and be a little bit of a minor completionist, they tend to take a
yeah,
little longer.
yeah, I like to take my time with Bethesda games like that. They have their depth. But like I said, is Starfield a bad game? Absolutely not. But at the end of the day, let's also be quite honest. It's not winning best game. It didn't win Game of the Year. That's for damn sure. And it certainly doesn't deserve Game of the Year. It's a great game. Don't get me wrong, but it's not the best in the industry. And that's the problem here. I think Xbox wagered that they would have a new big success and probably told both their internal investors and also were probably hoping to use this as a banner, a standard bearer going forward, saying, "Hey, look, industry, we can have good exclusives too." That was the hope, and it fizzled. So now I think Xbox internally is doing a bit of a reevaluation, and they're saying, again, potentially, is it worth doing this going forward? Like, is it worth continuing to try and fight a console war that we have now proved not once but twice that we are losing? And that might be where this is all coming from. I think Starfield was kind of, I don't want to say the beginning of the end because that sounds way more dramatic than it is, but I think it certainly sent a message to Xbox's higher ups. And I think that has caused a bit of discussion in the boardroom about
Hmm.
what are they going to do now. Now, again, we don't know. This is all unconfirmed. Xbox hasn't officially said anything on the notice. The reason it's blowing up all over the industry, though, is because a lot of big name industry, shall we say, insiders and leakers who have pretty good track records are all saying the same message. So, if you're in the journalist space, when all the leaks start saying the same thing and all the reputable leaks start saying the same thing, chances are that's what they're saying. They just haven't said anything publicly yet. But we'll see.
Well,
Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. What would you say if they put Halo and Master Chief Collection on PlayStation, Justin?
mm, I'd say, hey, you know what? I feel like they're probably going the same approach Valve is in a way, which is they're probably moving on to being more than just a hey, we're a distributor. We're going to make other things as well. And that
That's
might
the
be
thing.
the direction Xbox might be heading.
Maybe. I mean, one of the points that Paul made in his video, and I think that's a very good point, is that if Xbox does go through with this, they are definitely going to move much more into the publisher space. I mean, they're already a publisher, but they're kind of like PlayStation in that regard. They make hardware, but they also publish. But it's not their main business. But if things go the way they are, that might end up being their main business. Because, like, okay, let me, again, I have to be very cautious with my words here because I don't want to send the wrong message. Does this mean Xbox is going to pull out of the console business entirely? No, probably not. The units still sell and they still make them money, sure, but it's certainly going to hurt the bottom line. My best guess, and I think also Paul, funny enough, also said something similar, is that the units are going to be there. They're going to probably keep making Xboxes for the next 2 or 3 generations, let's say, at least. The units are going to be there. They're there if you want to buy them, but there's not going to be as much incentive anymore. Like I said, we saw recently, and I think this has kind of been the great. I think this is the culmination of the arms race we saw in the industry over the last 5, 10 years between Xbox and PlayStation. PlayStation has always had a slew of um, exclusives to fuel their ever growing machine. Xbox, as we mentioned prior, didn't and was criticized for it. They attempted to remedy this in the current generation, which is where we kind of saw this acquisition arms race that was kind of spearheaded by Xbox. A few other companies did it too, but let's not bring up Remedy. And that's a whole other can of worms. But, Xbox was kind of leading this kind of acquisition arms race against PlayStation. And I think at the end of the day, despite all their acquisitions, despite all the money they shelled out, yeah, they got the money back probably, but they weren't getting the big investment they were hoping they were gonna. They weren't getting the big payout they were hoping they were gonna from this investment. So, like I said, will they throw away the console entirely? Absolutely not. Like I said, 2-3 years, probably the next 2-3 generations at least, probably. And they're still gonna have this stuff, but they're not gonna be as controlled about it as before because there won't be any point, or there won't be as much of a point. So yeah, that's kind of where we are with the industry at the moment.
Hmm.
But again, some people say that there's going to be one big happy family and they're going to unify everything. And yeah. That's very nice and all, but I'm sure they're going to come up with some press statement when they do release this. Xbox is going to say something along the lines of, in our attempt to unify the gaming community, we have decided to graciously, I probably won't use the word graciously, but we'll put our games on PlayStation, and PlayStation and us will lead the way in creating a more unified and friendly and inviting ecosystem for gamers, blah, 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 insert marketing talk here. But let's be honest, that's all bullshit.
Yep.
Like, as much as it's nice, and yes, admittedly, that's probably what they will somewhat accomplish, that ain't the main reason here. It's probably going to be effectively them saying, to the best of their ability, that it's them being nice instead of not them, we give up. Like, anyone who reads between the lines when that statement comes, if it does, will probably be able to piece together what they're saying. But, like I said, they'll probably say they're unifying the industry, but at the end of the day, they're probably just doing it because it's all business. It's all business.
All
But yeah,
business.
it's all business. But yeah, so that's where we stand. What do you think, Justin? Any grand points you want to add? I kind of cut you off last time, Edmund.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm kind of have a feeling the overall industry in certain regards is kind of following a little bit in the same footsteps Valve did. Because Valve right now has the Steam Deck, which is basically set up to pretty much be a portable computer in a way, with the type of handling that it can have. A lot of people have been playing fairly like demanding games with the Valve Index and the Steam Deck and everything. So, like their overall software, both VR and mobile, have been pretty on point coming from Valve. So, I have a feeling that's kind of roughly where the industry is slowly starting to go towards being a hey, it doesn't really matter. What matters is the overall content we have and just making our way of, playing it, seeing extra little bits like movies, clips, extra content and whatnot. That kind of stuff being more exclusive in a way. So, who
In
knows?
a way, I think, mm, honestly, I think in a way, Valve and Xbox are currently becoming the opposite of each other. And I think Valve's whole attempt to get into the mobile space is a whole other video we could talk about because as
Well,
Nintendo has,
mobile space being Nintendo's field, really. But yeah.
that's a, yeah, like I said, that's a whole possibly other video topic for another day of them trying to step on Nintendo, they're trying to cross over Nintendo's territory. And if history has taught us anything, you don't cross that line. Nintendo is very protective of their land.
Except, I will say this: the only major difference between the two is the fact that the Steam Deck basically just connects you to your own Steam account. Like, you're just playing your Steam games. So,
It's the market share, but
it
again,
is.
whole other video
It is.
topic. But at the end of the day, like I said, what I was gonna say prior is that I think I think it would be more accurate in my opinion. We say that we're seeing Valve become Xbox, and we're seeing Xbox become Valve. My point is simply this: Valve originally was a publisher. At the end of the day, what you want to say, they were a publisher. They made games. They sold games. Then they became a selling place. They became a marketplace. Kind of. Nah, I don't want to say they gave up on the publishing business. They kind of kept into it, but it became more of a title than anything else. And they've kind of again been going into that kind of console space. They've been kind of going into that hardware space. Valve didn't originally start the console business. They're going into it. Versus Xbox, which we're kind of seeing do the reverse of that. They are in the console space, and if this does end up happening, they might slowly pull back and become more of a publisher. So it's almost like one is becoming the other. Now, again, does this mean the Xbox is dead? Again, as I've said 100 times, absolutely not. They'll probably keep doing this for the next 2 to 3 generations at minimum. I might be wrong, but again, that's my opinion. But it'll certainly mean that Xbox will really shift in what it feels like, you know? It won't be the other half of the coin to PlayStation that we've seen it for so long.
Yeah.
It'll probably be just
There
another
at
name in
this
the room.
at this point, like there was a time where both Xbox and PlayStation were basically just two different ends of the same coin, going and fulfilling two different areas. But now there's just Xbox is like we're done, we're doing our own thing now. So what
I'll
that
take the
will be,
Nintendo route.
who knows?
In a way, they're almost taking the Nintendo route of what Nintendo ended up doing. Well, would it be closer to say Sega or Nintendo?
Sega.
No,
Yeah.
Sega kind of blew up on themselves though. In a way, they kind of
Sega
they're
blew
back.
up, but I mean they made certain mistakes that helped Nintendo out in the end. So
Yeah. It's not like Atari where they just kind of crumbled in on themselves. They kind of blew up, put themselves back together, and they're on their own little niche nowadays. Hell, I'm playing Yakuza Like a Dragon, and that's made by Sega, so clearly they're still successful. Ironically, working with alongside Nintendo on some projects, which is a grand irony if you know your gaming history. But in the case of Nintendo, they kind of just bowed out of the console wars, and we're just like, yeah, we're gonna do our own thing. You
Yep.
don't like it? Tough luck. So I don't know. Maybe they'll become the Nintendo Sega. I don't flipping know. But yeah, I know one thing. When that statement, if it does come through, it's gonna shake the industry. It's already bloody shaking the industry, and nothing's happened yet, officially anyway. All eyes are on Xbox, and we shall see where the dominoes land.
we will
Always
see
do in
where
this
they
industry.
go.
Anyways, we've rambled on long enough on this show, so I'm done talking, and if you're done talking, Justin,
We're done.
we're done. We'll let you all go. Have a good night, have a good morning, have a good lunch break, whatever time zone you're watching this in, and we'll see you all next week. Bye bye now.
Perhaps soon,
You on about
PlayStation.
perhaps?
Nah, perhaps soon PlayStation players will be able to enjoy the same rampage I am performing on these grunts right now.
That's the funny thing. Xbox is conceding, but I doubt PlayStation ever will. The closest
No,
they've come to
PlayStation will never concede. What is
They'll never
concede in
concede.
PlayStation's mind?
History is repeating itself. Like fucking, they're like Sega, they're conceding, and then fucking PlayStation's like Nintendo. They're not conceding anything. You're
You
just
will
gonna
not
have to live with.
concede.
You will just live with it, and you will like it, just like Nintendo fans. But anyways, have a good night, everybody.